What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Weekly Watt for Friday, May 20th, 2022. I'm one of your hosts, Colin Jenkins, alongside the future of fitness himself, Eric Mazone. How's it going, Eric?
Oh, it's doing well. I want to congratulate us. We're exactly on time today. I think
Sweet.
it's pretty good. Takes a little practice.
Yeah, I guess we're getting a little better. Yeah, what's been up with you? I missed you last week. So anything new over the past 2 weeks for you?
Let's see, man. I don't know. Did we, I was in New York. I don't know if we talked about that meeting.
Yeah.
The Boutique Fitness Summit. Then last 2 weeks, just been cranking out, man. Been doing a lot of podcasts, interviews. As I told you this morning, got to interview, it's not live yet, but the founder of, Tonal, Ali Orati, which was really interesting in what they're doing. Nice. And the sheer amount of data and, hundreds of thousands of subscribers now. So it's been cool to follow his journey. But other than that, man, I mean, the world of fitness is evolving quicker than you and I have ever really seen before. So
now, did you get any insight from him about, Tonal's one of the few machines I haven't tried yet. Mm-hmm. And it's been out for a while now, and I'm always thinking that there's gonna be like a new iteration of Tonal. So I don't really want to, I feel like if I buy it, it's going to turn into the next version of Tonal, like exactly a month after, which is probably not the case. But did you get any insight on whether or not that might be the case?
I would just go ahead and get one. I think I'm going to test one out. So I'm going to get one as well. That was one of the things I was really excited about. So I'm going to get one, but I would look at it more like this. I think Tonal is more like Tesla. Like you can get a Tesla and then they're going to constantly update the software. And that's the key is like, I don't think the patents or the shifts in what their hardware is. I mean, it's electromagnetic resistance, right? But I think the software that runs it is going to continually be updated. So I think you could probably be pretty. He didn't mention anything.
I feel like that's true, except for one thing, and that's the fact that it only goes up to like so many pounds.
Oh,
so for like, not that I lift as much as I used to, but
you're stronger than the average dude, Colin.
Yeah, I feel like I would love it to be like another. It's like it goes up to like 200 pounds, which I know for digital weight because you don't get momentum. It's actually heavier, but so it probably feels like more like 250 or a little bit more than that, but. I would love to see something like a pro version go up to like 300 pounds of digital weight, which I'm sure it will. I'll probably end up buying it like in a few months, and then it'll come out like in a month after that. But that's okay.
Yeah, well, give me 30 days. Let me get one. I'll play around with it.
Okay.
I mean, here's the thing: is like not to get too off track, but they have. I was looking at who they have as ambassadors: Serena Williams, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Bobby Wagner. Brandon Marshall, Tony Gonzalez. Like these are very strong people. So I would imagine like. Unless they're using it for like rehab or preventative measures, I imagine it's got to have a certain amount of level of resistance. Those are big, strong people.
Well, they don't use it. They're not going to use it for all of their training.
That's true.
They're going to use it for what they need to use it for. And some athletes don't. I mean, it just depends on the time of year and what they're using it for. For upper body, it seems for sure, definitely enough weight for most cases and for most uses. And in terms of like its efficiency in the home and like how little space it takes up for how much you can do with it, I think that's really the big draw of it is you don't have to have a barbell and weights and all this other stuff. You could just have this very slim profile machine against the wall and be able to jump on it any time. So definitely interested. And I know a lot of people really love it. So curious to see how that goes for you.
Yeah, me too.
Around here, I'm just still moving everything. I moved into this new house a few weeks ago, and it still feels like I have made very little progress in terms of organizing things. But it's such a pain in the butt. And I feel like it'll never end. But I slowly am chipping away at it and getting things organized. But hopefully it'll end soon.
Well, here's what we do is like you get a bigger house, and then you just get more stuff. And then
that's the thing. I don't remember this. I don't remember moving ever being this pain in the butt, but I feel like it's just the accumulation of stuff over time. By the time in 20 more years, it'll probably be like a whole year effort to move, I guess, if I don't throw anything away. But it's no fun. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Weekly Watt live show, where each and every week we come together to nerd out about everything in connected fitness and health. If you like that, you can head over and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Connect the Watts, to watch the show live, or you can find us on podcast services like Apple or Spotify. And if you're feeling extra helpful, make sure to leave us a review. Appreciate it as always. Now, today we have a lot to talk about. We're going to focus the first half of the show on the Peloton and iFIT litigation settlement story, because there is a lot to unpack around that. And whether or not you have a Peloton or if you're an iFIT member, it doesn't really matter, because if you're interested in connected fitness, it will probably affect you in some way. And then after that, during the second half of the show, we have a special guest, Justin Roethlingshoefer, fitness tracker and recovery expert, to discuss how best to use data to adjust your training for better results. Now, this episode was made possible by today's sponsor, Tempo, makers of Tempo Studio and the Tempo Move, and you'll hear a bit more about them later. But for now, let's talk about this story. Now, before we dig into this whole Peloton and iFIT settlement story, there is one interesting news that came up around Peloton this week that I want to kind of get your thoughts around first. And that was that Peloton had announced, or they just made this deal with Congress earlier this week. So the deal with Congress was that everybody in Congress and all the police officers that revolved around the Capitol was going to get access to either a Peloton digital membership or free access to an all access membership. Wow. So it's part of like a packaged, corporate package deal for everybody. And I believe it was like they were going to pay $10,000 as a base fee, and then $10 for every person that wanted to actually use it. Which doesn't seem that great of a deal, since the Peloton digital app is about $10. So yeah, I don't know. But anyway, it was going to go through, and then let me pull over like what happened here. So it's going to go through, and then there were some issues going on. People were not happy about all these perks going on at the same time. People can't get baby formula, and so there was a lot of complaints. And this, Kevin McCarthy went and did a 10-minute rant on the floor about Peloton and how they should not get
that. Doesn't look good.
No, and they ended up canceling it. Because they ended up canceling the whole perks package, along with some ice cream package. It was like a really weird thing. I don't know.
So it was essentially like a corporate wellness program specifically for Congress, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because it doesn't look good. Like
no,
so
the optics. It looked like Peloton finally had a big win. It could have been a good because they're really trying to go into corporate package now that things are open now. Not everybody wants to work out in their home, trying to capture people with corporate packages and hotel packages, all that type of stuff. So it looked like a really good win for them, but then by the end of the week, it was like, no, it's not going to happen. So
yeah, it's not good.
I thought that was sort of an interesting news bit. But so yeah, let's talk about this litigation story, because the big news of the week was that iFIT and Peloton reached a settlement for all of their law. Basically, they just decided this is a tough time for businesses, especially connected home fitness businesses. Like, we need to stop spending all of our money on suing each other in litigation and just get this resolved for once. Yeah. And so they settled on all of their ongoing lawsuits, which they had multiple. And, I'm going to talk about each of them, because I think there is a lot of interesting discussion to be had around these different lawsuits and how they will affect not just Peloton and iFIT, but probably every other connected fitness device. And so there's kind of three big lawsuits, two ones that will affect people the most. And the first one was regarding iFIT. So iFIT, they're makers of Nordic Track and Proform. They have the patent around auto adjusting equipment that's done by the instructor or done by the class. So, when you're on their bike or on your treadmill, if you see a incline, right, you're going up a hill, the bike or the treadmill automatically inclines or declines relative to that. And it adjusts like not on the bike. Well, the bike, it'll adjust the resistance, right? Depending on what the goal is for that. And the treadmill will adjust the speed. And they have a smart adjust system that combines like your fitness like how fit you are relative, and then it'll kind of work with you, and it's pretty good. They've been getting better with like adjusting it and fine tuning it.
So sorry, Colin, who owned that initially?
So iFIT owns that patent.
Okay.
Right? They own that patent, but then Peloton came out with the Peloton Bike Plus, and the big draw, or one of the big draws, the Peloton Bike Plus, is that it has auto adjusted. So it doesn't incline or decline, but it does auto adjust the resistance for you, so you don't have to worry about turning the knob while you take a class. And so obviously iFIT, that was one litigation that's been going since the Peloton Bike Plus was announced. That was a big deal. And so Peloton, there has been no resolution to that for over a year.
Wow.
And that's an interesting one to follow. So the solution for this settlement for that is that Peloton is just going to pay iFIT now for the use of that ongoing. So there's no details shared. None of the companies would give me, I got a little bit of juice out of the companies. But not much.
What'd you get?
Because once they settled, it's just like, I don't think they can really talk about much. But basically it's a set amount. I don't know if it's going to adjust year to year or how it works, but it's going to, they're going to be paying iFIT continuously for the ability to have the auto adjust feature on the Peloton Bike Plus. So that's one thing. I'll talk about how that will maybe affect other companies too. The other one that got resolved was regarding a patent that Peloton has for their interactive leaderboard. So basically, when you take a class on Peloton, you can see everybody else in the class alongside you and how they're doing, and you can interact, you can high five them, you can look at their profile, that sort of thing. And so Peloton had the patent, I guess, for that, and iFIT obviously has a leaderboard during their classes, but almost everybody does in Connected Fitness. Like Hydrow has one, Echelon has one. They all kind of, some of them, it's very unclear about the patent of how much it'll hold up, because it's technically like any leaderboard for any fitness class, which is kind of hard to hold up. I mean, if you think about like, you could call it like a game, a fitness game, and like there's live leaderboards in all games. So it's a weird patent, but people have skirted around it in different ways. Like one of the things I noticed when I was reviewing the Hydrow, I had a good leaderboard, but you couldn't interact with it anyway. You couldn't like see other people's profile. You couldn't high five until the class is over, and then you could. So I thought that was maybe interesting. I was like, why is it limited? I would like to be able to just, if I see somebody that's like I'm rowing near, just kind of like add them as a friend. But looking at the patent stuff, I can kind of see why maybe they're kind of skirting around that. Echelon typically has no holds barred. They'll just do whatever they want. So theirs is very similar to Peloton's in terms of like interactive. They actually have emojis you can send. It's kind of weird. You can send like little wink stuff. It's super weird on their leaderboard. But it's very similar to Peloton's. And iFIT's wasn't very interactive. You could sort it and you could see previous people, but you couldn't really see who's in the class with you or really interact with it very much. But even that was, an issue. So, no, iFIT has said in part of the agreement that they're just going to stop using the relevant parts of that patent in terms of their leaderboards. But looking at what they're actually doing, it doesn't seem like they're actually removing the leaderboards. What they are doing, which some people are upset about, I'm not, is they are removing their live classes, all of them, from their platform. So the reason why I'm not upset about that is because, iFIT does one thing really well, and that is their outdoor scenic content. It's great. Their indoor live studio content isn't like that great, especially not compared to like Peloton's.
So the preset on-demand content that's set in the outdoor backgrounds, things like that. Is that's what you're talking about?
Yep, that's great. The studio indoor where they do their live classes, that's not so great. Now they're going to continue doing the studio classes evidently, but just not live. But I actually think it's kind of you know, maybe they could have paid Peloton to continue doing it, but I don't see the point because almost nobody takes those live classes. Like you'll jump in, there'll be like 10 people in there, 15 people in there. I think it's actually a smart move for iFIT to just use this as a reason to get rid of them altogether and maybe use those resources for something that they do much better, which is that outdoor content. And they're going to be they'll still do live events. So they do like live 5K races, 10Ks, different types of like race events, which I think is cool.
That is cool.
This will give you like a goal to like, you know, motivate yourself to work towards. And then you can do it live with the group and they'll still have that. But in terms of like the other class, the live classes, they are going to get rid of those at the end of the month. So that was one thing. And obviously that could affect, again, a ton of companies. And because Peloton has a lot of lawsuits against all of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious, you know, all of them are kind of low on money and they really probably shouldn't be spending it on this stuff. So they seem much more willing to like, just be like, okay, let's just figure out a way to like end this nightmare. Right.
How do these companies stack up? I mean, I haven't done the research like iFIT and Peloton as far as like market share users. Do you know any of that information? Like, are they the two big giants in the market that are kind of battling it out, or are there other key players, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, it's very dependent on how you look at it. Cause it's so like iFIT has been around for like 40 plus years.
Right.
Their member base is pretty big. Their member base is comparable to Peloton's. I think they have like 3 or 4 or close to 3 million subscriptions with over 7 million like actual memberships, which is kind of similar to Peloton's. In terms of equipment sold, before 2021, iFIT was the number one fitness manufacturer in the world. Then Peloton took that over in 2021. Which if you think about it, it's insane. Like even like Rogue doesn't even compare to them. Just to let you know how many bikes and treadmills and stuff they sell. I don't know about that case now, like this year, as things are dropping a little bit, but they're the two biggest definitely in terms of like exercise paired with memberships. There's other like apps and other memberships that probably have big numbers like that, I'm guessing, but I don't think any of them compare in terms of like the actual number of machines or equipment that are paired with them. I mean, there's a lot of other ones out there, but not to the same size as those two. So they're two with the most patents and the most like, obviously probably the most lawyers as well.
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting time, right? I mean, it's like we're coming out of the pandemic, people are going back to gyms, you know, inflation is high, market, you know, I don't know how much, like it sounds like consumers are still spending money, but you know, are they going to be spending it on this if they got it, or are they going to be out traveling? Are they going to be, you know, spending it on, you know, dining and movies and shows? Like, what is this still going to be the focus of consumer money? It's going to be a fascinating year, I think, as we go on.
Yeah, I think everybody's just kind of self-correcting and trying to figure out. I mean, this year's gonna be tough. I mean, I don't know if you saw like the reports from like Target or Walmart this week.
Yep.
Yeah. But consumer spending is way down. People just don't have as much money when you're spending, you know, I don't know about you over there, but it's like, you know, $6.50 a gallon here on gas.
Ouch.
And, I mean, it doesn't affect me. I don't go anywhere, right? So it's not a big deal. But for other people, I imagine it's a bigger deal. But for me, it's the meat. I mean, I eat a lot of like deli meat, absurd amounts. And I mean, that alone costs hundreds of dollars more a month just from that increase.
Jeez.
I mean, because it used to be like $6 a pound for some good turkey. Now it's like $12. It's a lot. But so what's interesting, what I wanted to share, because I didn't see this anywhere else, and it's something that kind of found its way to me. So those were the two big lawsuits that most people know about in terms of iFIT and Peloton, and those are the ones that the outcome of which will have the most impact on other companies. But what I found really interesting was about a few days before, maybe a week before, a few days before that settlement came about, there was a judge's like final notes on another like civil lawsuit between the two companies. And this one was in regards to Peloton was suing iFIT for basically to defend against stealing their trade secrets. And so I took a bunch of notes here on what happened.
Sure did, yeah.
It's a 12-page summary, but I found it really interesting. So this guy named Jeff Barber, who was working on a Peloton commercial, filming it. He had the script for the Peloton commercial, doing his thing. He had a friend that worked for iFIT that he was like this, and the friend from iFIT wasn't like a marketing guy. He works in like the manufacturing side. He just I don't know what he does. He's an engineer type guy. The guy's like, oh, send me the script. I would love just to check it out. It sounds super interesting. And so the guy, it's his long-term childhood friend, sent him the script. And then 8 days later, iFIT sent Peloton that script back saying hey, there's shit in this script that's our shit. Because, it's probably around the Bike Plus with the auto adjust or whatever.
Yeah.
And then Peloton was like, how the hell did you get that script? Because so then they sued. So that's when they were like, okay, let's sue them for stealing trade secrets. And then part of this was so basically Peloton claimed that they, misappropriated by doing several things. They basically said that, let me pull it up here. They said that after that script was stolen, that iFIT's marketing at the beginning of 2021 resembled that script. In the script, there was a dad walking quietly around a crib to not wake his child up. And I guess that was a thing. And they said people looked similar to the people in the script, which I don't know how they look similar, but basically the judge was like, there is no similarities between these things that we would not expect from any similar kind of competition. Right. Obviously a dad trying not to wake up their kid is a common thing for home fitness equipment. And then Peloton also argued that iFIT dramatically, increased their marketing budget at the end of 2020 and early 2021. And that shows that they increased it because they had this trade secret from Peloton, which is the dumbest thing ever. Because everybody in home fitness was increasing their marketing budget at the end of 2020.
It was the heyday.
And in January 2021, when it was the most coronavirus-y time, obviously they're going to be increasing their budget. So the judge was like, yeah, has nothing to do with that. And then Peloton, argued that iFIT failed to notify them in time, which they notified them in 8 days. So the judge was like, they didn't have to tell you at all. And then, he basically said that at the final conclusion wrote, instead, Peloton's theory of misappropriation is based on speculation. Peloton's evidence, the unremarkable similarities between the iFIT's advertisements and Peloton scripts, iFIT's increased advertising spending, iFIT's monitoring of Peloton's marketing activities. That was another argument they made, that iFIT was monitoring their marketing, their marketing activities, because they're a public company and iFIT. So, but of course they are. What competitor?
Yeah, this sounds like corporate paranoia.
No, yeah. So it was basically a way. It looks like it was basically a way for Peloton to try to just cause time in courts, right? So make money, make another company kind of struggle. But I thought it was interesting that came about literally days before the settlement. So I don't know if that, obviously had something to do with it, but it's kind of an interesting conclusion. And now in terms of the outcome of everything, I'm really interested to see, obviously auto adjusting is going to be tough, and maybe iFIT's going to be making some extra money by just licensing that out. Because even in fitness gyms, even in gyms, it seems like a feature that you may want to have, having a treadmill auto adjust to the user. That's a pretty good patent, I would think. And then the leaderboard thing, that's literally, so is it every connected fitness device can't have a leaderboard without?
I can think of 3 off the top of my head that have leaderboards, and interactive too, with emojis and points and all kinds of stuff. Even you get into the fitness metaverse, it's all going to be leaderboards.
Yeah, and that's why I never thought that patent would hold up. Because imagine that would be saying oh, somebody has on a video game, your high scores are patented. Like you can't, it would be super weird. But I guess in the realm of like, I feel like there's a million ways you could skirt around it, but the fact that they didn't skirt around it and they're just choosing to cancel. No, it's because they're canceling the live classes, but they're not removing the leaderboards on the on-demand classes. Makes it seem like they only really think that the leaderboards will hold up during live sessions. So that's one thing.
It's like the NFL saying, okay, the scoreboard, that's our patent. Yeah, I know you. Yeah, everyone else plays different sports, but that's ours. You can't use that anymore. Like it's ubiquitous. Like you can't avoid it.
Yeah, it's super weird. But that might be the case because I don't think, like I said, in this environment, everybody wants to go up against any more lawsuits or any issues. So I wouldn't be shocked to see all of the connected fitness platforms take away the leaderboards, at least for their live classes, which was super lame because like it's so weird to take a live class without seeing, like you don't even know you're live unless you see other people there with you.
Yeah, exactly.
I was like, actually, that was the case when I just reviewed a new fitness piece of equipment called the Jack Jocks Interactive Studio. It's like a screen and dumbbells and stuff. And one of the issues, it's a good machine, but one of the things I did not like about it was their live classes was literally there's no interaction of the coach to anybody in the class. There's no leaderboard. There was no the only difference between taking an on-demand and a live class experience there was that the connection was worse because you needed a better connection to be able to handle a live. But it was super weird to even have a live class at all if you don't have a leaderboard. I feel like the whole point of live is that like be seeing other people in there with you and possibly competing against them.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going to happen for all these companies. I'm really curious about how this settlement will affect, the landscape of connected fitness and if these companies have to adjust or if they just ignore it or what, if anybody's actually going to push it.
Like, are they going to come up with a new name for it? Like, okay, now it's the dashboard, right? Where it's like, okay, well, you have like, well, I mean, like as people tie in like heart rate monitors and things like that into live training sessions, like where's the line delineated between, just having a dashboard with everyone's heart rate or score? Like, I don't, it's very, it's going to be it's a hard thing to do. And then are you going to chase down every connected company that has some version of a leaderboard? That sounds exhausting.
Maybe. I don't know. Anybody that's big probably. Again, I don't know. I know they were suing Echelon and all these companies sue all of each other. Like, I know Hydrow and iFIT are in lawsuits. Echelon and iFIT are in lawsuits. Echelon, and I think it's all a giant. It's so much money, but I guess that's in any tech sector. It's a big portion of a budget goes into patents and lawsuits. So, I guess it's sort of to be expected. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't know. Let me let's go ahead.
That's a lot of big news, man, for 1 week.
Yeah.
That's
well, just a big
makes me anxious. I'm glad I don't work for one of those companies. I mean, you have to wonder if stuff like this is personal at some point. Like
it was 100%. A lot of this litigation is 100% personal. Like iFIT actually demanded that the U.S. Trade Commission stop importing Peloton bikes a few months ago, and then a month later, Peloton demanded that they stop importing iFIT bikes for the same. Like it's ridiculous. But I don't know. So anyway, let's take a quick commercial break to hear about Tempo and Tempo Studio and the Tempo Move, and then we'll be bringing our guest on this week, fitness tracker and recovery expert Justin Roethlingshoefer. So we'll be right back. And now a big thank you to Tempo, who has helped make the Weekly Want possible by sponsoring this episode. In a connected fitness landscape that is changing so rapidly, and with the fairly high price it can take to build out your own connected fitness home gym, it's nice to know which products are future-proof and which may become obsolete in just a few years. And that's why I love the Tempo Move. It uses high-quality dumbbells and Olympic-style plates, as well as since it utilizes the tech powered by your iPhone, it is built to last long into the future. And that's important because nobody wants to invest money into something that may not last or be made obsolete
within just a matter of years. Make sure to check out the Tempo Move with the link below if you haven't done so already.
All right. So welcome, Justin. He's a 3-time best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and performance expert who has worked in the NHL for over a decade. He's also the founder of Own It, a digital platform that enables coaches to turn their athletes' fitness tracker data into meaningful performance and recovery gains. Welcome, Justin.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. Looking forward to this.
Yeah. How you doing, Justin?
Great, Eric. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping in. I talked to you maybe about a month ago or so, I think. We were talking about, how to use Whoop data and regards to Peloton workouts. And I think, we got a lot out of it in terms of being able to, help get some understanding of data. But I wanted to talk to you today even more broadly and even maybe more in depth about data and how the average person can use their data to make better choices and to get better results. Because, I think a lot of people in connected home fitness or outside of home fitness, they track a lot of data. Like people get heart rate bands, they see like Strive scores on Pelotons, they have like HRV scores, they have sleep, they track their sleep. But I don't think most people actually do anything with it, which seems like it's sort of a waste of time and money. Because from me, my perspective, at least, like data is only valuable if it informs decisions. Otherwise, it's wasted space. And so I kind of want to get your, maybe we start broad and kind of go in from there, but like your thoughts on how people can start to use their data for a purpose, with use and help them make decisions with it.
Yeah, Colin, you bring up a really great point, and I think it's the time in which we're in, right? And the health and wellness space has just exploded, and it's only going to continue to grow. And I know you guys were talking about even now the lawsuits that are coming up. I mean, obviously there's lawsuits because this money talks, and it is a massive, massive industry. And the thing that I think has been lost in this is because it's become such an arms race of when it comes to the tech piece, is that every company is trying to create gamification within their platforms now, and it's trying to take over what Instagram did or what Facebook did or what TikTok has done in this addictive behavior change. And it's actually not going to create addictive behavior change in a positive way. It's just now bringing you back into that thing, but it's a piece of exercise technology or health technology. And so as much as we want to think, oh, we're doing things the right way, we have to, as consumers, be really aware as to what we're being drawn into and what we're actually looking at. And the better that we can be educated, the better decisions we can make. I always say competence creates confidence. And having that level of confidence about heart rate variability, sleep quality, your resting heart rate numbers, respiratory rate, zones for heart rate zones during exercise, after exercise, all of these things that we're looking at, what do they mean and how are they applied back to the foundational habits that exist in somebody's life to create actual change?
Yeah. No, and so I guess maybe let's just start with what people track most, right? Most people track, or a lot of people track during exercise. Let's just talk about aerobic training just to make things easy for a little bit, like bike and running. And let's talk about just like heart rate tracking. Like everybody tracks heart rate tracking, but is there something that people can do just even with something as basic as that? Is there anything that they could look for or signs that could be seen or anything they could use to, again, make better decisions?
Yeah, so I think it all comes back to purpose, right? It's wanting to know why you're tracking. Like, what are you doing? What's your goal? What's the end result? Is it weight loss? Okay, great. Is it performance? Okay, great. Is it when you want to run a marathon? Is it that you want to run a triathlon? Is it you just want to run a mile? Is it that you just want to be able to come back from your bout with COVID? Awesome. Like whatever your goal is, fantastic. But let's get clear on what that is first, because without a clear goal, without a destination, we can't put any steps that matter in place. And once we do that, let's establish a baseline. And that baseline can be, again, this is where it becomes very individualized for each person, but it can be anything. And let's say we talked about this, Colin, on the Peloton one, was where let's just choose a Peloton ride, use that as your standard base, a 5-minute interval ride, and let's see what your average heart rate was. Let's see what your total score was. And that's your baseline. And then we go into a training protocol where it's slowly, progressively overloading. And then maybe once every 2 weeks, we come back, we do that baseline ride and see if we're improving. If we are, outstanding. And that's really something that's positive. Now, a lot of the data coming out shows from an overall health standpoint, let's just say health is our biggest motive here, is we talk about this zone 2. And zone 2 training is, it's been shown to increase cardiac output. It's been shown to improve respiratory rate. It's been shown to improve cholesterol and triglyceride levels. It's been shown to improve heart efficiency, all of these things, which are positive, which obviously improve sleep, which improve recovery. It's undoubtedly one of the most important things that you can do. And so zone 2 training, which is somewhere between that 60 and 75% max heart rate zone, is super important to be able to include into our day. Now, a lot of your trackers, whether it's Fitbit, whether it's the Apple Watch, whether it's Whoop, whether it's the Oura Ring, actually Oura Ring doesn't because it doesn't go live, Polar, Garmin, any type of live heart rate strap is going to do this. It'll just take your age, 220, subtract your age, and that's going to be what your max heart rate is, and then you're going to get percentage off of that. And so that, I think, is, if we can start instituting 3 or 4 days of zone 2 training for overall health in somebody's week, you're going to be outstanding. I usually go somewhere between 100 and 140 minutes is what we're looking for weekly. You can break that up however you want in that zone 2 stage. Great way to have purpose, intention, to optimize your health utilizing these technologies.
Yeah, no, I think that's really useful because, especially within connected fitness and home connected fitness, all these programs that you follow. And again, we were talking about Peloton mostly, so just using them as an example is really easy. Most people, like the most popular classes and schedules and things you see people doing, it's going to be high intensity interval training. It's going to be most people just pushing for PRs all the time. And now Peloton has one program, Power Zone training, where they do make a good effort, be like, hey, like a good number of your rides are going to be lower, like zone, it's Power Zone on heart rate space, but basically it's essentially zone 2 and zone 3 on heart rate. It's a lot of time spent there, which I think is great, but I think most people don't take those classes, even though there's a dedicated core group who only take those classes. But I feel like it is something that it should be talked about more, is like, you maybe should not go as hard as you can. I mean, Eric and me are from CrossFit days where there's no such thing as, I don't think my heart rate is ever below 190.
What was it? Pukey the Clown?
Pukey the Clown. Yeah. Yeah. That was good marketing.
Oh man. Tough one.
Yeah. And even in CrossFit, people were talking, like, for the earlier days, like early before 2010, it was just all about, intensity and stuff like that. And, I know for me personally, when I was training competitively, when I actually took it seriously and actually tried to get significantly better, most of my days were spent doing really low effort zone 2 training, just tons and tons of it. And it was remarkable how much better of an athlete I became by doing that versus just high intensity stuff all of the time. It was more about, movement efficiency and accumulation and building a good base. And I think outside of CrossFit, just in general health, it's like, again, people just underestimate because everybody is so short on time, right? And so I feel like maybe that's the issue, is people want to be like, I just only have 20 minutes in the day and I want to get the most I can out of the short time I have. And so I guess my question then to you is, with the benefits of lower effort training, and you mentioned like 120, 150 minutes a week or somewhere around there, what can somebody who has more limited time, let's say they work out 5 days a week, but only really 20 minutes a time, and that's all of that strength, that's car conditioning, it's everything. Like, what kind of advice, I guess, would you have for them in terms of that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I mean, it's Tim Ferriss will hate me because I'm going to come at him from the 4-hour work week is not something that it was a great marketing ploy, great way to get people to buy your
Eric
book.
only works 4 hours.
But I mean, I don't know if it's working, but yeah.
Any of your like your billionaires, any of your people who have built amazing companies, they're not following a 4-hour work week. And we talk about, you go back into the 4-hour body where it's like, hey, go and hit this and like get after it, do your 20-10 intervals and do 8 of them and call it a day. Well, awesome, cool. There's studies that show the benefits of that, but then there's also studies that show that there's massive benefits with 150 minutes of zone 2 training a week as well. And so I think you have to level set expectations with what you're willing to put in. And if you only have 20 minutes a day, amazing, fantastic. Let's use those 20 minutes the best that we can, but don't expect that you're going to lose 150 pounds if that's what you need to lose. Don't expect that you're going to be the chiseled dad walking down the beach. Don't expect that you're going to improve your squat by 200 pounds. If we can level set what our expectations are, and for 20 minutes a day, you're going to go and you're going to create some variance in what you're doing, and you're going to do maybe 3 days a week you're going to do zone 2, or 2 days a week you're going to do zone 2, and then the other 4 days you're going to hit it hard in a high intensity interval bout, and then maybe 1 day a week you're doing some heavy strength work. Amazing. And that's kind of where I come back and I always talk to, we need to create a variety along the spectrum of what we're looking for. And that's how you can really create that holistic health or holistic strength and conditioning protocol for the average person. There's always 6 things we want to try and hit on, right? We call them different days. So 1, you want to move something really heavy. So like strength day, like really like 2 to 4 reps, heavy strength. We want to keep that adaptation going. Then you want to move something fast. So work on all of your power work. Think like 65% of your max on a squat, and maybe you're doing jump squats with it or something to that nature. Then you want to go and you want to sprint. There's going to be a sprinting day where you're really taking hold of these sprinting mechanics. Then you want to go and do what I call play, like a play day, where are you playing basketball? Are you playing a sport? Are you using it in a different bunch of different planes of motion and having to do a bunch of different tactile motions while also being able to stand and have motor control and motor function in different ways. Then you're going to do your steady state, which is kind of that zone 2 we talked about. Then it's going to be your interval work and something getting you to high heart rates and holding it there. And then you're going to have a rest day. And utilizing that kind of framework and that kind of diversity allows you to have a really level set and well-rounded holistic training regimen in just 20 minutes a day, but making sure again that your expectations of what's going to happen out of that are level set as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I got a question for you, Justin, and we alluded to it earlier, and I think we're looking at like this age of accessibility of data because more people are wearing wearables. There's easier ways to get stuff like DNA and blood tests, like Inside Tracker. This morning, I actually met with someone from Levels, and we talked about continuous glucose monitoring, and the availability of that is getting more and more and more. But the issue, like we talked about earlier, is okay, cool. That's great. I mean, I have a Lumen on my desk, right? It's like, okay, now I know where ketones are at, but now what? Like, what do I do?
Quick note about Levels.
Yeah.
So I used Levels last year, and now the one thing I learned 2 things about that I thought were really interesting, just as a really interesting side note. One, if I eat cinnamon Cheerios at night, because I always eat cereal and chocolate milk as my pre-bed warm up. And
you're gonna have
which I do not suggest for anybody else.
Glucose spike at night. I'll tell you.
Oh yeah,
we'll talk about that offline, Colin.
But with the cinnamon cereals, my glucose did not spike, or insulin did not
Regulated,
spike.
For sure.
And then also interesting, which I did not know before I took the levels, was that if I ate something that would spike my glucose, like Cheerios or ice cream or, you know, stuff I normally eat, if you go for a walk or even just like a walk afterwards, it's so much different in how your body reacts to it. It blew my mind how, like, if people don't want to lose weight, like, just move a little bit after you eat some crappy food. It would be it really, like, that data is really interesting, and I hope that more people can get access to it, because it's really is kind of interesting to see. But sorry, I had to.
No,
I'm
going to add something to that, Colin. It's really interesting because, quite frankly, it's what we do at Own It. Is we help people understand all of these different data components and then make them actionable for people. And so, to your point, what you're going to start to see, and it's predictable now, is, you said it: cinnamon, apple cider vinegar, or any type of vegetable prior to eating something starchy or sugary is going to have that level set effect. And to your point, if you go for any type of walk, that's why for my wife and I, we always take our dog for a 15-minute walk after we eat dinner. Why do we do that? For that purpose. It's just a habit that we've built because it level sets our blood glucose before we sit down on the couch and watch This Is Us and cry our eyes out before we go to bed. And and then the third thing is the order in which we eat our food should always be vegetables, protein, fats, and then carbs, in that order. And so that simple adjustment actually minimizes the glucose spike as you're going through. And so these are just things that you can learn. But again, it's like having an idea as to how. And I want to talk a little bit, Eric, about what you said, is like, the more that these tools are all amazing. I love them. The fact, like, and a lot of the way that our world's going, it's great. But we have to realize that they're just tools. That they are. You get a blood glucose monitor, it's not going to fix your blood glucose problems. You get a Whoop band, it's not going to help you sleep better. You get an Oura ring, it's not going to make you more active. You get a Lumen, it's not going to make you eat better. Like, none of these things are there to actually put it all together, and they're only looking at one entity of the body. Our body has 250 million processes that happen every second, and it's what happens chronically over time that ultimately impacts cell mutation. It's called chronic disease for an issue. It didn't happen overnight. It manifested overnight. You found it out overnight. Yesterday you didn't have diabetes. Today you did, but actually you've been earning diabetes for the last 18 years, and so it's chronic. And so what we actually want to do is we want to get a holistic picture of what's going on in your body. And I mean, when we bring a client on, we do gut biome paneling, we do DNA testing, epigenetic testing, cellular glucose interaction testing, cellular nutrient dysfunction, and then an LPP cardiovascular panel along with a hormone panel to understand, okay, what's going on in the gut, how's that processing in the brain, and what's happening at the cellular level, because that's where everything manifests from. And if we can understand where it all manifests from, then we can start creating different access points. And then we can start creating different habits that create the foundation. Our habits are a foundation. Health is the foundation. Health is the number one performance enhancer we could ever do. Ask somebody, I don't care if they're the best athlete, the best entrepreneur, the best mom or dad, how good are you when you have a cold? I'll be the first to admit, I'm an absolute bag of crap. Like, and I'm a high performing guy. Like, but if I have a cold, lights out. Like, my capacity takes an absolute plummet. And we need to make sure that, I don't care how much I'm tracking, how much I'm doing things, the habits to optimize health need to be put into place. So making things actionable and purposeful for you, like Eric, Colin, and myself, all things are going to be different. All three of us could have a similar problem, but the solution to that A, is actionable, and B, most importantly, is sustainable, is definitely going to be different. Because Colin, your life is different than mine, and Eric, yours is different than Colin's, and Eric, yours is different than mine as well. And so we need to create that actionability in a very purposeful and intentional way, based upon those individualized metrics.
Yeah, interesting. You know, and I think when you're talking to like all those tests that you're running sound awesome. Like the amount of data and insights that you can get at the level and depth that you can get from those is impressive. I think if you're going to suggest to people who are really concerned about health and longevity, and when we take into account the more I guess accessible data that we have, stuff that comes from wearables, or that we can maybe buy one more device in our life and monitor, what do you think are like the 2 or 3 most important metrics that people should be aware of that would be the most valuable when it comes to health and longevity? And I think this is like a very debatable conversation, right? Because some people will say, well, HRV is the guiding light, a lot of it even just resting heart rate. But you think for the common person, right, what would you suggest that they're focusing on?
Yeah, it's a great question. So studies have shown us, well, actually, I'll go back. Common sense tells us that life cannot exist without air, water, food, and sleep. Those are the 4 things. If our bodies, if humans do not get any of those 4 things, we die. So they're probably pretty important. Now you come into what science has told us creates longevity is a higher average HRV, a higher average sleep quality number. So total hours of sleep quality every night, not quantity, big difference. And then a steady blood glucose. Those are the 3 things that, of all the science, of all the longitudinal studies that have come back and been shown, is that those 3 things, if we can maximize those 3 things, we can ultimately create longevity in ourselves. So to answer your question, those 3 things would be a steady blood glucose, a higher average HRV, and a higher average sleep quality time on a nightly basis.
Awesome.
So I'm curious about the sleep quality from your perspective, because that's one of the things I'm kind of figuring out. Like, I don't sleep very much at all because sleep means I'm not doing something else that I could be doing. That's more fun. And so I wish I could just
Colin's going to leave this earth earlier than we are.
Yeah,
I know.
Man.
Like, people don't understand my cereal, chocolate milk, 4-hour sleep regimen is really what keeps me young, but and keeps me going. But in terms of sleep quality itself, I am curious about where you feel the best data to look at from, because I have probably at this point I have 9 things tracking my sleep.
Yeah,
and none of them are they're accurate and comparable to each other in terms of my sleep time and wake time, but in terms of the REM and deep sleep, they're all over the place, and I can't tell I have no idea which is right or wrong. So I'm curious to get an idea from you maybe about is there any data that shows any of these being better than the others? I'm really curious because I have no idea.
Polysomnography. Yeah. get PSG in your room. There you go. That's the answer. It's tough, Colin. It's the companies are doing the best they can, but a lot of it is an estimate. At best, your best wearable right now is about 45 to 60% accurate on your sleep quality every night. At best. That doesn't mean that other metrics aren't great, like your respiratory rate or your resting heart rate or body temperature or these things. But that's how they algorithmically kind of back into what your sleep quality time is, right? If your resting heart rate is dropping at this area, we can look at the research. We know that resting heart rate drops to its lowest level during REM and slow wave sleep, so that we can kind of start to figure out based off of even your HRV and resting heart rate numbers, kind of these timings, but it's all an estimate. There's nothing until they actually create. The one company that's doing a pretty good job of it, even Sleep8 it's still an estimate. But the one company that's doing a pretty good job, that's got some really cool research going on with your polysomnography and the accuracy that's there is actually a company called Sleep Me. They haven't come out with it yet. It's still in testing. They're still working on it. But again, it's in lab right now. And they've been doing some really big stuff. It's still only come out to 80% accurate. And so it's a really hard thing to do unless you have that polysomnography in your actual bedroom, which nobody wants. And I'm not sure if we'll ever get there, but
I used to like 10 years ago, before all these devices, I used to have this thing you could wear around your head that would attach. I forgot what it was called, but that
me
ended.
too. I was that guy. So I'll tell you.
I stopped wearing that as soon as I met my wife. I had
well, I'll tell you, I had a hard time. I had a hard time with girls in college because I was that guy going to bed with a pulse oximeter on, a chest strap, a strap around my forehead, and red lights under my bed. So was not the most popular guy. I was the guy that he's weird, stay away from him, don't talk to him, but he's a nice guy.
Yeah. The Sleep Me, is that what it was called? Sleep Me, Justin?
Yeah. Yep.
How are they? What's the mechanism that they are using to actually get the data?
Yeah, so it's you've obviously heard of Chili Sleep. They're a company that's been doing some things for a while, but obviously using temperature regulation through their water that's coming through, cooling and heating you up based on different times of the day or different times of the night. Pardon me. And their technology kind of, again, it slides under the bed and there's a sensor in a couple different places, and so. It's been really interesting to see how accurate it is and what they've been able to do. But again, it's about doing that repeatedly in other people's homes, not in the lab. When it goes now out of the lab, does it drop? I don't know. And that's the nice thing is it's not on a wrist, it's not on a finger. It is whole body, which is obviously something we have to take into consideration. But at the end of the day, it comes down to brainwaves and to understand what stages of sleep we're getting into. It has to parlay into that. And so there are different ways. Again, we can back into that, but how do you do that without specifically wearing a device like this? There is another one. It's called Kernel, but I'm not wearing a helmet to bed, so it's pretty accurate. But again, it's like I'm just not wearing a helmet to bed, and I don't think 99% of other people are going to be wanting to do that either.
I think, Colin, you legally have to wear a helmet to bed, right?
I probably should be wearing one right now. And I have 8 Sleep, and I do find it's super interesting to see it because it has a AI kind of auto learner. Like basically, it tracks your sleep. For people who don't know what 8 Sleep is, I don't have the mattress, but I have a mattress cover. So basically, it's a very thin matrix of water, and it's connected to a little pod generator on the side, and it can adjust the temperature of your bed from like 55 degrees to like over 100 degrees, and it can learn. Supposedly, I mean, you can set it yourself, but if you have the autopilot on, it kind of learns like what temperatures or in what types of sleep work best for you to kind of enable you to sleep better. And that is.
How did you find that worked? How did you find the AI worked in that for you?
Hard to say because I don't look at my sleep quality through I don't really do a lot of the measurements that I would probably need to take to know oh, it's actually improving. I kind of just going on feel that was probably, I think I did 50 reviews of products over the past year easily of different fitness and tech products. And that's probably been our, for me and Megan, my wife, our favorite over, if there's one product if I had to get rid of everything and I could only keep one, that would be probably it, just because, and also because our house got so hot. It was so terrible. And that was the best, just to jump into a bed that's perfectly regulated to your temperature. But I don't suggest getting something like that unless you plan to have it forever, because I feel like I could never go back.
Yeah, but, I'll tell you a little story, because we've got a lot of clients that go with Sleep Me or go with 8 Sleep, and because again, I can sleep better, right? This is great, and they get it, and their sleep is disastrous because they're toss and turn and they're chilly at night, they're cold at night, they're too hot during certain times. And that's why I asked you how the AI was because when I went and got mine, even it's really hard to, like, I would wake up freezing in the middle of the night. And once we do it manually, I mean, with our team of coaches, learning all of these people, we're tracking heart rate variability, we're tracking respiration rate, we're looking at phase and resting heart rate. We're looking at all of this over the course of the evening and the night, and then adjusting temperatures across the board. And by ultimately regulating this out, transformed quality of sleep. And now, again, is it an estimate? Yes. But as long as we're estimating the same estimate and looking at the same estimate, and it's a change in a positive direction, and then it's consistent over a longer change, you can probably say that there's been a positive adjustment. But what we've been able to do with them as well is create natural circadian rhythm states, so that a lot of our clients, they don't even use alarms anymore because it's all temperature regulated. I think that's my favorite part about this, is that as you get ready and prepare to fall asleep, you're falling asleep faster because now you have a temperature that your entire body is. It's not just, hey, we've got the air conditioner on to 68 degrees, but underneath the bed, it's 73, 74, 75, because that's what the covers bring us to, or sleeping next to our partner or our pet or whatever increases the temperature eightfold, whatever it may be. But we can actually regulate that out now, and you dive into a deeper sleep quicker, knowing that the earlier you're in deeper stages of sleep, the longer you're there, and the more impactful it is, the healthier it is on your brain, the more impactful it is on heart rate variability, the better it is for recovery. What did we just talk about? Longevity. All three of those things come into play there. And then you're not waking up with an alarm anymore, because now we've got this timed out. If you need to wake up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., we've got the temperature now rising up to 103, 104, 105 degrees. And naturally, you're just waking up. So you're coming out of that circadian rhythm much more easily. And now you're seeing a natural rise in cortisol. You're seeing a natural drop in melatonin, which is helping you jump out of bed much quicker. And now if you have those baseline habits, you get up, you see sunshine right away, you get your feet on the ground, you get some water in your body, you get some form of movement, your natural circadian rhythm just starts to take over. And that is when these habits that we talk about become truly impactful and purposeful. And you're like, man, like I've had these tools for so long. I thought this was going to do it, but no, it actually took being able to have a human or a person teach you, educate you, help you understand what this is, know you a little bit more, know what's going on, and then institute this plan that you can act on that actually works and changes your individual biology to make sure that, again, you're optimized in the way that you're working.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. And I think one thing too, just that you mentioned there, I think is an interesting point that just to counter what I was kind of my problems with sleep tracking is that I think you made a distinction of accuracy and precision. Basically, like some of these tools may not be accurate for like the sleep tracking, for example, but if they're measuring them in the same way, you can still, you don't need, not every metric needs to be accurate, but if it's precise in terms of it's measurable the same way, same with like body fat trackers and stuff like that, then you can use it as good data to see improvements and improve, or like if you're increasing or decreasing your sleep or increasing or decreasing your body fat, even if it may not be like your true, body fat percentage or your true, sleep numbers completely, I think it's definitely useful to have numbers as long as it's precise in terms of like how it adjusts.
Yeah, you definitely can't have something. I mean, we talk about it all the time, shit in, shit out, right? And so if it's, well, I think, can you swear on the show?
Yeah.
I think we already have like 6 times.
They haven't kicked us out yet.
But if it's poor data in, it's going to be poor execution out. And exactly what you say, Colin. As long as it's precise and it's being able to be consistent along these same lines, you can at least compare that to it. And the consistency needs to be there. And so it becomes really difficult if you're comparing Whoop to Aura to Garmin, because you're going to see different numbers, and it's not going to make sense because, quite frankly, they're all only about 45% accurate. So, but if you're comparing that preciseness of that unique device, you're able to bring context to it. And this is something else I talk about often is in today's day and age, we have become so reliant on technology. And the unfortunate part about technology is, and who knows if it'll ever get here, it won't get here in our lifetime, but their technology cannot bring context to anything. Humans are the only things that can bring context. And storytelling is a massive, massive skill. And it's the art of coaching. It's the art of the human element. So if I go to sleep and I have a poor night's sleep, but I've done everything the same leading up, I lay down, I have a great night's sleep, or I have a poor night's sleep, I wake up and I'm exhausted, but I'm like, I did everything the right way. Your technology doesn't know that you got in a fight with your spouse and didn't talk to her all night. And then you subconsciously were thinking about that all night. You woke up and no wonder you're exhausted. Is because you have a different stressor going on, and your piece of technology can't decipher that. Only humans can. And that's where bringing context to it and being able to storytell and be able to understand what's there is truly, truly important. And knowing that HRV, and let's go back to the concept of what HRV is heart rate variability is a language. It's the way your body communicates with you, how it's adapting to stress and strain. That's all HRV is. HRV isn't good. HRV isn't bad. If your HRV is low, it's not like sound all alarms, treat you with white gloves. It's just a communication factor. It's just a communication tool. Hey, Colin, not adapting to the stress you put me under yesterday very well. And oh, by the way, our body doesn't know the difference between mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional stress. So it's another big shocker for people. It's like, if you go and do like a really hard workout, or you're on back-to-back intense calls all day, or have to make a really hard decision, or you have to put your dog down, or you're in a fight with your spouse, or you're traveling and you're having to organize a bunch of things, those are all major stressors that your body has no clue the difference. It responds to each one of them the exact same way. And we have to realize that. And that's why when you go and do a workout and then you're in a stressful time in your business and your primary caretaker for your parents, it breaks a lot of people, because our body doesn't know the difference between these stressors. And we have this chronically depressed HRV score. It's like, well, what's going on? I can't figure it out. I've worked out today. I should be healthier. Well, no, you've got these 3 other categories: mental, emotional, and spiritual stressors that are just weighing you down, and we haven't alleviated the gasket yet. And so helping people truly understand that and be able to storytell and bring context to it in a much better way is an amazing way to be able to be more actionable and purposeful in those tools like we talked about that you're using.
Awesome. Well, Justin, thanks so much for jumping on. So where can somebody go to learn more about you and Own It?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 places, super active, ownitcoaching.com. Mm-hmm. So ownitcoaching.com, or just through my Instagram platform at Justin Roth with an L at the end. Justin Roth with an L at the end. And you can either super active on Instagram, as well as you can access us right through our website. So anything, look forward to interacting with you guys.
Awesome. And then Eric, I know your Instagram might not be popping off as much, but do you have an Instagram?
Yeah, I have one. It's at Emailzone. I don't do a whole lot on it.
I'm real bad. I'm really bad with that too. But
yeah, I'm on.
But anyway, how can somebody find more about Future of Fitness, and if they want to listen to your podcast with the CEO of Tonal, where can they find that?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Futurefitness.co is a site which actually is under reconstruction, but it's still on the old stage. And then heavily active on LinkedIn, and of course, all the major podcast outlets. So Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it, I'm out there.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, you guys. And thanks so much for listening, everybody. We'll be back next week, likely Friday or Saturday. We'll have to see, but have a great